Welcome back to my channel. Today's project was sent over by my good friend Steve Berto. He has his own YouTube channel where in the past he has played and beat some of the hardest NES games. I subbed to him about 10 years ago, and every now and again I check out his channel as his favorite games are my favorite games, like the Resident Evil series and the old N64 wrestling games. So yeah, I first discovered his channel when he was playing Battletoads many years ago, and I was shocked. At the time I didn't know people can beat that game. I thought it was just impossible. So I was intrigued. So he actually did complete that game, and then he went on. I think before Battletoads or after, I watched his Silver Surfer playthrough and his Mike Tyson Punch-Out playthrough. It was incredible. I couldn't imagine somebody being so talented and they could beat these hard, frustratingly hard games. So I subbed to him, and we've been friends ever since. So if you can, check out his channel, sub to him, tell him I sent you. So on to the project. He sent over an email asking if I'd be interested in making an NES arcade stick similar to an NES Advantage, but instead with a higher quality arcade buttons and joystick. I agreed, and he sent over this box of parts. So the first page on top is actually a letter, so if you want to pause and read it, it'll give you some more backstory and the reason why he wants an arcade joystick. Now in this letter he also mentions that he made one in the past because he wanted to beat Solomon's Key, and if you played Solomon's Key, you'll know that the up direction is the jump, not an actually dedicated button, so you need precision to beat the game. So on to page number 2. This is actually a complete list of all the parts used in this video, so if you want to replicate this video and you want a breakdown of all the parts, most of them, the arcade buttons and joystick, are from focusattack.com, and that came out to $67 with shipping. And then he bought the housing box off Amazon along with the grip tape for an additional $9 and $28, and the other $27 were screws, washers from Home Depot. And page number 3 is basically a rough draft of what he wants. Now I'm going to take some liberties with these measurements, and after it's all said and done, I actually kind of like how it turned out. Okay, first bag. Now we got the controller stick or the joystick, and if you've ever used like a Neo Geo controller, you'll immediately know the difference between a good one and a bad one. NES Advantage, terrible. This one in this case is perfect. So here's the grip tape. This is just, you put it so your hand doesn't slip when you're pressing the buttons. The feet for the bottom of the box. Some buttons. Drill bit. This is an 1 1/8. So if you want to buy this drill bit to make the holes for the buttons, it's an 1 1/8. So here's one of the A and B buttons. Really clicky. Now there's some components in this little bag here that I don't know where they go, so I didn't even use them. But I'll be sending them back to Steve Berto so he can figure it out if he has a special purpose for some of these pieces here. Here's the knob for the controller stick. And finally some special connector wires. Another bag of wires, and several packs of machine screws. Now he sent over too many screws. I'm gonna send some of those back, and these washers, I actually never needed them, so I didn't even use them. What he didn't send were nuts for these screws, so I had to go to Home Depot and waste my gas to drive to Home Depot to get those nuts. And of course I need an NES controller, which I have on hand, so I'll be supplying that. To start off, I took a white piece of paper and I taped it to the top of the box. This way I can draw all the measurements on top of the sheet of paper. So from top to bottom, I'm going to try to divide this in half, and I measured 3 5/8. I know it's an awkward number, but that's what it came out to. So the template called for 1.5 inches from the base of the joystick to the edge of the box. Now in this video you'll see me line it up correctly, but later on I do adjust it. With the joystick as a guide, I can use it to line it up. Next is the button. It's about 1 inch from the base of the controller module, so I'll mark it down. So one button is going to line up directly on the bisected line, and the other one's going to sit above the bisected line. Next is the start and select buttons. So I wanted them to sit about 1 inch from the top. In hindsight, it should have been probably 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches. From left to right, the middle point of this box is 5 3/16. In this shot, I got everything lined up more or less where they're going to go, and the start and select buttons, I'm just going to eyeball them in. So here's one thing to note. I've been using inches this whole time, but conveniently enough, from the center point of this box to the left is 4 centimeters, and to the right is also 4 centimeters. So if you want the button to sit exactly in the middle, you just do 2 centimeters and it's perfect. So I marked the middle points of all the spots I have to drill, just so when I take it out to the garage and drill out these holes, I make sure I got the right ones. So in this shot, I'm trying to find the middle point for the A and B button. That's going to be my drill hole, and it came out to 11/16. So I was looking over my work here, and I kind of figured that the joystick was going to sit a little too close to the A and B buttons, so I'm going to shift it over 1/2 inch. So that's the adjustment that I make. In this shot here, my father's drilling, I'm recording. So for the controller, the joystick, we're using a 5/8 drill bit, and for the buttons, we're going to use the 1 1/8 drill bit that Steve sent. I drilled the rest of the holes off camera, and I also drilled a hole in the back of the case so I can fit a wire through. You'll see that later on. For the controller, all I need is the controller board. So in order for me to pass the cable through the hole that I made in the back of the case, I have to actually desolder the cable from the board, and then I'll just resolder it back later on. So I got a little hasty with the sandpaper, and I actually scratched up one of the start buttons on the side of one of the start and select buttons, as you can see right here. So that was unfortunate, but it's a lesson learned. For the joystick, I lined it up into place more or less. I centered it, and then I just traced with a pencil these holes. So this is where I have to drill. This is where I'm going to drill a hole so I could fit this cable through. And I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, and I went out to the garage, drilled these holes, and as you can see, everything lines up perfect. Here's the cable. I have already passed it through, and I knotted it so it won't slip out. So now I'm going to pass it all the way through so I can have some slack to work. I actually decided to solder the wires to the top of the board just to make it easier to route everything. These wires have connectors on one end, so it makes everything easier to connect. For the joystick, there's a cable with a special connector. These wires are a bit long, so I'll group them together and cut them all to size. I drew up a little diagram that references these 5 wires coming out of the joystick connector. So from the left to the right, it's ground, down, up, right, and left. For the record, I don't actually think that there's a ground pin. It's just the other end that completes the circuit for each button. One side of each button and the pin that I labeled ground on the joystick needs to be bridged together. This allows each button to complete the circuit and register. So for each side of each button, I've already bridged and tinned one side, and the other side I've stripped and tinned. So these are all together. So it's the fourth from the bottom. So for each corresponding button, I'm actually going to solder to the chip rather than to the carbon pad. As for this wire, the end is kind of thick, so to solder it to the chip I have to add a little piece of wire to the end. So this is the last one. As you can see, I've already soldered the rest in place. I think it came out pretty nice. So here's the finished product. While I was in the garage, I did find this machine screw that's perfect to hold the board in place to one of these holes. So here I'm just going to show you I filed down the hole to widen it a bit to fit the screw, but I actually don't mount the screw to that hole. I mount it to one that's closer to the center of the board. Here I put a little piece of electrical tape because I don't want the screw to twist and expose the copper trace, bridging two traces together. So I actually just used a piece of electrical tape as some sort of padding. I could have done this part a little bit better than I did, but it turned out the way it turned out. Here you can see the electrical tape bunched under there, so it is creating a distance from the board and the screw. So I adjusted the knot to get closer to the side of the box, so the board isn't actually under stress. So now we have some components here. Now this spring, I don't actually know what to do with the spring, so maybe Steve can figure it out when I send this box back to him. But I know that there's a washer that goes over that, and then the head, the ball of the joystick just screws on. So we're almost completing this project. Now I noticed this plate here is almost identical to the other plate we have on the bottom of the joystick, except the one that's currently in is a 4-way, or it's a box square shape, and the other one is an octagon, so it gives a little more direction, I guess. So far the inside is complete, so I'm just going to add all the screws off camera. Here I'm putting a piece of paper and I'm going to tape it down because I want to create a template for the grip pad that I got to put in this section here. Sometimes things don't go according to plan. As you can see, I cut this grip tape in reverse. Luckily, there was still enough tape that I can try again. Before I lay down the tape, I want to make sure the surface is clean, so with 99% alcohol, I'll give it a wipe. And lastly here, I'll add the feet, and we're done with this project. So now for the rest of this video, I'll just let it play out. So select works, put up the volume. Yep, the buttons, they all work. Up, down, left. Pause works. That works. Up works. Down, left, both. Can't run in this game. So if you want to see more of this controller in action, I'm going to be sending it back to Steve Berto. So subscribe to his channel and he'll be posting a video, hopefully, of his controller versus my controller. And then he'll also let me know the thoughts on what I should have improved upon or I should have done differently. Thanks again for watching. Oh, that's it.